Have you ever felt?
Are you listening? Damn.
Good morning, guys. Thank you for tuning in.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to Race to 100. I'm Rix Thorsell.
I'm Neil Mbateng.
And we are so excited to start this show. We're going to be talking about race in America and coming at it from two very different perspectives. And I think before we get into this whole conversation, which is a very difficult conversation to have with a lot of people, I think that we want to tell a little bit about ourselves and why we're so interested in doing something like this. Go for it.
Good morning, America. I'm Neil Mbateng, one of your co-hosts of Straight Up, and this is something I've always wanted to talk about. It's a very passionate topic of mine. I guess it all started when I was younger. I am a little about me. I am a first generation immigrant. My family's from Cameroon. Shout out to all of you guys watching. I know you are. And it's been a very interesting life for me to grow up in as an American and as a first generation immigrant, because it's kind of like you're constantly battling an identity crisis. You feel sometimes that you're not African enough because you were born here and you speak English like an American. Sometimes you feel like you're not black enough or urban enough because you grew up with African values, and a lot of people in the African American community don't necessarily accept or identify with that. So it's a constant struggle to figure out who you are and what you want to become. And I'm doing this today because I know it will help me determine who I am and what I'm trying to be. And I've known Rix for a long time. The reason why I'm doing this with Rix is because he's somebody that empathizes with a lot of the issues, the problems and nuances in the African community or the black community, and we gonna make this work. It's gonna be really cool. Make sure you tune in.
Yeah, and I've never had a problem with being considered not black enough or too black.
No.
A little bit about myself.
Who dances with two left feet?
I know. Just teach me something. Yeah, so I guess for me, I've lived in the suburbs of Chicago for pretty much my whole life, and like Neil, would relate to. It's a very homogenous area to live in. I mean, everyone around us is white. There's there weren't too many African Americans in high school, were there?
In high school, we did.
I didn't have any
of the Glen Brothers, right? Because there were four of us. We had the second least amount of minorities to Glenbard South. Glenbard South had the least, then us, then North, then East.
Okay.
The minorities. Now, our high school was in good old Glen Ellen, Illinois. Yeah, it was in Glen Ellen. It's in Glen Ellen, Illinois, and the minorities that came to our high school, 90% of them lived in Glendale Heights.
Yeah.
So,
which is like the lower income area for the wealthy suburbs of Chicago. So I mean,
I guess we should say lower income, but real estate is cheaper here.
Yes.
Real estate is significantly.
Generally speaking, people were less affluent than living, in the mansions
compared to those in Glen Ellen that voted Donald Trump to win the Illinois primary. Yes, much less affluent.
Yeah. So I mean, I didn't really have too much interaction with the black community whatsoever. I mean, I met Neil. What was it? Junior year high school?
We met our junior year exercising.
Yeah.
This guy was my lifting buddy. He was angry and he pushed me to do well when I was exercising, and we've been friends for over 10 years.
Yeah. So I mean, that was really my only experience with race, and then I went off to college at Drake University in Des Moines, Iowa, which obviously is like a bastion of racial diversity, if you know anything about Des Moines, Iowa.
Yeah.
And it was actually there that I had my first encounter with an experience that really changed me. It was a class called Liberation Theologies that was taught by this great professor, Dr. Jennifer Harvey, and it was the first time that I heard someone articulate a faith that really made sense to me internally. And liberation theology in America has to do with, for the large part, the founding of liberation theology had to do with the black struggle to take the symbol of the cross and transform it into something filled with hope in the face of a white society that was trying to use that cross to oppress them.
I
say
see.
sort of like,
Okay.
you know.
So it was kind of like turning the tables against them.
So yeah, it was a very revolutionary theology,
Yeah.
and it was like, well, God speaks to us in very unique ways, and God is a God of liberation. God sees people who are struggling and tries to break them out of that captivity, whatever that captivity may look like, whether it's slavery, whether it's segregation, whether it's racial discrimination today. And so I heard that for the first time, and it was like as close to a point of revelation, I think, as I've ever gotten. And ever since then, it really did consume my focus. I ended up doing my senior thesis in undergrad on the theory of the Black Christ, and then I went off to seminary to do my master's at Union Theological Seminary in New York City, and my primary focus and reason for going there was Dr. James Cone, who was the author of American Black Liberation Theology. And I immersed myself in that for another 3 years and got to have a lot of difficult questions from, it's a very diverse campus, and I got to meet people who came from places where racial discrimination was still a very serious issue, and to try and reconcile that with me being a white person, as somebody who participates in the system, to try and understand what my role would be as a white person who does see a lot of the things and does try and understand a lot of the things that are going on here. So part of the reason why I'm doing this is I want to have a conversation with Neil about the Black experience in America as far as our experiences can allow us to examine that. And I think that there's so much miscommunication that goes on between Black and white people. Yeah. We speak two very different languages, and my hope is that we're able to start understanding each other in one another's language and one another's worldview. Because, for example, me as a white person, I have no idea what it's like to be aware of my skin color when I walk down the street and see a cop car pull by. That's something that's never crossed my mind before. Maybe you can speak to it, but that's something that I think a lot of Black people do have to worry about on some level or another.
Yeah, and
we'll get into this in more detail in future episodes, talking about conversations or experiences that we've had in this field. But to say the least, this is going to be a pretty cool journey. What we're planning on doing is filming for 100 days, doing a daily show that we're going to bring out to you that's going to cover anything from, Black Lives Matter.
To rhythm and white people, or lack thereof.
To Supreme Court cases that are coming up that have to do with voting laws and access to voting. And to using the N-word. Because I think that's a conversation that a lot of white people... I like to call it the talk. When a Black person explains about that.
You're about to get broken up.
Yeah.
It's the most awkward. It's so awkward, dude.
I know.
It's like... Really? Did you really have to go there?
But see, as a white person, I'm totally not aware of the things that are infused in that. So as we start this conversation, we want you, the viewers or viewer, to join in on the conversation. I know that the YouTube comment thread isn't always a bastion of safety or rational conversation, but we will read everything and we will try and respond as best we're able to expand this conversation, because I think it's something that's very important for us as a culture to be able to be aware about.
Yeah.
So I guess with that, stay tuned for our next episode, and we'll catch you on the Race to 100. Peace.
Thank you.